Welcome to Valley Newsline, the week of January 21st, 2007. Hello, I'm your host, Ron Woodlock. On the program today, Richard Cortez, mayor of the city of McAllen, sitting almost on the banks of the Rio Grande River in deep South Texas. Also, the former chairman of the Border Trade Alliance, which is the organization which is involved with not only the Mexican-U.S. border, but also the Canadian-U.S. border. Mayor Cortez, former Chairman Cortez, welcome to the program.
How are you, Ron? It's good to be here.
Now, the purpose of this program and this interview is to give the mayor and former chairman of BTA an opportunity to express what he's going to do and what he's going to say to Secretary Michael Chertoff, Secretary of Homeland Security for the United States, and also in conversation in those meetings with both United States Senators, Kay Bailey Hutchison, Republican of Texas, and John Cornyn, Republican of Texas. Now, Mayor, what are you planning to tell Michael Chertoff about your opinion, your concepts, your ideas as it relates to the plans of the U.S. Congress, now in law, signed by the President of the United States, possibly not being funded as the Democrats have taken over in Congress, the border fence, as it has been referred to by many along the border, as a quasi-Berlin Wall? What are you going to tell the Secretary of Homeland Security as to why potentially this should not be built, or should be built in a different configuration, or whatever it is you plan to tell him? Please share that with us.
I'm going to tell the Secretary that I understand that Congress is the one that dictated to him to build the fence, but that if I'm correct in assessing the reasons for that, is that they want to stop illegal immigration from coming into our country. I'd like to get confirmation from him that that is one of the basic goals of building a fence. And if that's true, then what I would like to tell him is something like this, that if the real intent of building a fence is to stop illegal immigration, that I want him to focus on the word illegal immigration, that we believe that the majority of the people that do cross the borders illegally and undocumented come for good reasons to find employment that employers in the United States need to have to run their businesses in our economy. So by simply changing the word illegal to legal immigration, we lose millions and millions and millions of people that cross to our border looking for work, and therefore we don't have to protect our borders from millions and millions of undocumented workers. We will have to protect our borders from some people crossing our borders. So by simple modification of our immigration laws, we can solve a big part of the problem of keeping undocumented, what we would call illegal people coming into the United States. The second thing that I want to tell him is that I feel that as mayor of McAllen, I'm kind of like the CEO of a business. The taxpayers are my stockholders. And when we spend money, we expect a value for the money that we spend. So now let's review what they have to do. They're going to build an asset that they believe it's an asset, a wall, to keep people out. So the next thing I'm going to ask him is, do you have enough funding available to maintain supervision of the wall and maintenance of the wall? Because a wall by itself isn't going to stop illegals from crossing. So let's assume that the answer is, well, most of the time, but not all of the time. Because what I'm going to tell him is what we know happens is that there's going to be 500 people over here, about 500 yards from the border. They're going to send a 16-year-old over there, and he's going to breach the wall. People are going to congregate on him, arrest him, and send him back. Hour later, they're going to send another 16-year-old across. Bells are going to ring. They're going to catch him. They're going to deport him back to Mexico. An hour later, they're going to send us another 16-year-old, and he's going to get there and he's going to say, "Hello, I'm here. Is anybody here?" He's going to look around and say, "Hey, I'm here." And that's the time that nobody's there. He's going to turn around and says, "Come on," and 500 people are going to cross.
Like that.
Like that. So if you're going to build a wall And we know that the wall itself is not going to keep them from coming. There has to be people on the other side 24/7 maintaining security on those things. Then it's simply not going to work. So the other thing I'm going to tell him is that I want to approach this thing from a different perspective. I want to approach it from an economic perspective, because I don't believe that anybody in America, including the president or Congress, is going to pick security over our economy. We're going to have to learn to coexist, to have sufficient security, but not kill our economy. I hope that's going to be a yes answer. So if we're going to have to coexist between having a good economy and good security, then what I'm telling them is this. I'm the CEO of my business again, and 40% of my shoppers come from Mexico. And we're like a Walmart. You know, you have this little membership card that says, oh, you have the membership card, you can come to my store. Well, my shoppers in Mexico have a little card that says Laser Visa. If they don't have a Laser Visa, they cannot come to my store and buy, okay? So what's happening by my government is they're taking away these cards from my shoppers. They're issuing less and less Laser Visas, so they're killing my 40% market coming over here. They're also telling me that I can't have a business that I can have more than one cash register and more than one door. They're telling me, no, you can only have one cash register and one door. So if I were the stockholder for that company and I was a CEO and I was telling you that all I was going to have was one cash register, okay, and one door to come into my store, I would be fired, because that makes absolutely no sense at all. So the policies that the U.S. policies now are approaching the southern border, in essence, is going to kill our economy, because 40% of our gross national product comes from the other side. And you're not investing in cash registers, you're not investing in doors to facilitate commerce to us. So we're concerned with that, because if security was really truly needed and the fence would truly protect us, well, then we would have to adjust our businesses, because it's in the best interest of our country to have that. But when we know that the fence in itself is not going to achieve the objectives, we just think it's wrong, and I hope that somebody will listen to us and evaluate the comments that I just made.
Now, when the mayor talks about fences and talks about doors, the doors in your case, in the analogy that you're sharing with me and the audience, those doors would be
Our bridges. The legal ports of entry.
And those bridges, based on the reports that you and I have evaluated, the last time you and I visited about this, at the Far International Bridge in particular, involved a report which has shown significant shrinkage in the number of Mexican shoppers coming across those land ports within the last 18 months.
And that's very concerning to us, Ron. It is.
Now, in the first part of the last segment, you mentioned in particular the desperate need, in your opinion, for a guest worker program, which is a program which has been brought to bear and bill has been filed by junior United States Senator for Texas, Republican John Cornyn. Now, under that program, some of these 11 million estimated undocumented workers, immigrants in our United States, would be able to come out of the shadows, become full-fledged tax-paying workers, and get involved in helping us solve our drastic labor shortage needs in the United States. Correct?
That's correct, Ron.
Why are you in such support of the guest worker program?
Because I come from the business world. I've spent my lifetime dealing with business and economics, and what we have is we're predicting a net 1% growth in population in the United States. Well, how can you have a net 1% growth in population in the United States and have a growing labor force to keep up with our expanding economy? You can't have expanding economy without an expanding labor force. So we can't produce them ourselves in this country because of the birth rates and the death rates that we have, and we have no choice but to import them from somewhere else. So what I'm suggesting to Congress is solve America's need for labor, solve that first, that is going to then mitigate the need to seal our borders for all these people coming across looking for work. The only reason they continue to come across is they continue to get employed by American businesses. Many American businesses depend on those type of workers, to get their business going. So I'm very concerned that America is not going to continue to be an economic superpower if we don't have a labor force.
Now, the president of your Economic Development Corporation in the city of McAllen, Keith Patridge, told me recently on this program, in this audience, that the most recent plants moving to the border and to northern Mexico, McAllen, Reynosa, are coming out of the northeast portion of the United States. And these plants and entities are relocating not for the cheaper labor rates per hour, but because there are literally no workers to fill the jobs of retirees and those leaving those factories and plants in the northeast part of the United States. And so they're relocating the plants here because there are no workers to fill those jobs.
That's a true statement, Ron.
Because, based on his analogy, and because what he's experiencing here in your community is the fact that by virtue of the post-war baby boom bubble, folks like
you and I,
we have that bubble has come down to the point, and there is no generation following you and I to fill those jobs. First time in the history of our country.
That's correct.
There's nobody to fill those jobs.
And Ron, I'm going to add, we were a very productive generation. A lot of us have high positions in our economy. I've been contributing maximum amounts of Social Security and Medicare to our fund here. And in a couple of years from now, I'm going to stop contributing. And not only am I going to stop contributing, I'm going to now I want to take money out. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist that if there's a pot and there's nobody put in that pot and people are taking out, somewhere that pot's going to go. So I'm very concerned with our government really not paying particular attention to really the fundamental strength of our country, which is we've always been an economic superpower. Economic superpower gave us an opportunity to be a military superpower. Economics helps us be the country that we are. The U.S. policy on the southern border is going to destroy that economics, not only for us in the border, but really for our country. It makes more sense to legalize those that are coming here for the right reasons. That makes the people that we have to track and look after and protect ourselves from a less onerous job than trying to put millions in the same bag.
Now, you're getting ready to visit day after tomorrow, based on the taping of this program, on Monday, prior to your meeting day after tomorrow, Wednesday, with Homeland Security Michael Chertoff. Now, the last time Michael Chertoff was in the Rio Grande Valley, he was accompanied by United States Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, in whose office you're going to be meeting with Secretary Chertoff. And at that time, we posed this question to the Secretary. If you would think about it, you must realize, obviously, from where you stand, that the air you breathe was in Mexico a few brief minutes ago. And the water that you see behind you is the water supply for the 1 million people who occupy this region called the Rio Grande Valley. Not only that, this region provides sole source products to Detroit and keeps Detroit open under just-in-time delivery, or closed if those products are not able to be manufactured. The federal government required the water utilities in the area to do a vulnerability assessment several years ago. They are now striving to find funds to try and provide some kind of monitoring for the water, because as you can easily see, to attack America, you don't even have to come to America. You don't have to get beyond these men in uniform, swim the river, climb a wall, or anything else. Just put something in that water behind you, and you will attack America. Could you see fit to add water utility vulnerability assessment monitoring equipment to your security border initiative?
Well, I think what I'm going to say is this. We have, of course, through the State Homeland Security Grant funding process, a whole range of funding for states to make sure they elevate their protection of critical infrastructure. That includes water utilities, includes power plants, and other kinds of critical infrastructure that's important to deal with the issue of a threat to the public safety and welfare. I think this particular initiative, though, is really focused on dealing with the issue of people getting across the border. So I'm confident that the governor, who's obviously getting this money, is mindful of the challenges here as throughout the rest of the state, and that he's going to pay very careful attention to what can be done to make sure that all the facilities here are as secure as they can possibly be.
Now, as you could tell and as you could see, Secretary of Homeland Security standing on the banks of the Rio Grande, being reminded that the air he's breathing was Mexican air, water behind him, Rio Grande, shared with Mexico, an international border, another foreign country. So therefore, that water can't be secured by us, can't be determined to be secure from the standpoint of prevailing winds coming off of Mexico, probably from here all the way to El Paso. Winds out of the southeast, blowing across the United States. You don't have to come to America. You do not have to climb a wall. It talks to the fallacy of building the fence. Talks really to the fallacy of border patrolmen as it relates to terrorism. Now, yes, we can stop people, and that's what the Homeland Security said in the answer to my question. That is, we're focused here on people getting across the border. We also visited with Texas Governor Rick Perry. After watching the entire interview and the question asked of Secretary Chertoff, this is what the governor of Texas had in response.
Here's the problem, Ron, is Texas got their Homeland Security funding cut by, I think, upwards of 30%. We're one of the most important regions of the country from the standpoint of having a secure border. Washington has failed in securing our border from the standpoint of having the number of Border Patrol agents, the number of National Guard, the technology that we need here. Is Washington going to get serious about border security? Are they truly going to send the dollars to the places where it really matters? Obviously, along this Rio Grande is one of those places, and they're not funding our border security the way that they need to be.
Now, Mayor, as you heard the governor of Texas explain, we're one of the most important regions in the country from the standpoint of having our border secure, yet Washington has failed in securing our border. According to our governor, he is telling this audience and the Director of Homeland Security, whose question and answer he had just watched, they are not funding our border security the way they should be and need to do.
Ron, I totally agree with that. Intelligence, reliable intelligence, whether it's in business, in war, or anything, is critical to sound decision making. And when Washington, our policymakers, pay little or no attention to us here, which we are the scouts, we are the form of information for them, because I like for them to point to one thing that we have recommended to them that they have done for us. They continue to believe that they know best what to do for us. So I think Governor Perry is absolutely correct. They just continue to make mistake after mistake and mistake when it comes down to policy on the southern border.
Now, the issue in particular that this reporter was asking the Director of Homeland Security, and he, as you saw, kicked the ball over to Governor Perry. After that, we took the same question and posed that same question to Senator John Cornyn. Here's Senator John Cornyn's response to where the ball was at that moment.
It is a federal responsibility to deal with an international border, and particularly the threats of bioterrorism. I do believe that bioterrorism is one of those looming threats that frankly are serious but underestimated when they talk about their negative impacts. So I agree it's a federal responsibility. I agree that we should be doing as much as we possibly can, and I assure you that I am on the job and trying to make sure that we get to a point where we are secure as possible, as soon as possible.
Based on the reactions of Chertoff and then Perry, Senator Hutchinson also was there, I didn't get the feeling that Chertoff understood the realities or that the governor understood the realities that water and air of the valley is unsecure because it's Mexican water, Mexican air to a degree, and that's totally unsecure. Does Homeland Security understand the unique characteristics of the threat that exists here on the border?
I doubt it, but that's my job to try to make sure that we deal with it as much as we can.
So, Senator Cornyn also understood the fact that Washington doesn't seem to understand the unique vulnerability, especially of the water supply here along the border. McAllen, Brownsville, Laredo, has asked for money for water monitoring equipment to follow up on the vulnerability assessments that Homeland Security asked your community, Laredo, and Brownsville to do. How vulnerable is your water supply as it relates to the potentiality for not only terrorist attack, but for contamination, E. coli with the ag products, and those kinds of things?
The answer is obvious. We draw all of our water from the river. Anyone from either side of the river can obviously seriously contaminate that water source.
Your community has requested water monitoring, a water sentinel project for technological equipment to be placed at the intake point for water coming into the community. And prior to getting to your water treatment plant, that water could have E. coli and could get into the agricultural products and therefore have an economic meltdown in the ag industry, just like happened in California. And that's one of the things that your community, along with Laredo and Brownsville, has asked the federal government for support with.
Correct. That's why we think that investing in those type of assets in our country are much better than investing in the wall that's simply not going to do what they think it's supposed to do.
And that's one of the things that Governor Perry spoke to specifically, that technologically money has not been offered and provided by Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, there have been many reports that have come out across the country, media-wise, which have spoken to some of the money that's been spent while New York City and Texas has been cut back. There has been a database of vulnerability, critical infrastructure, and key resources that's come out of Homeland Security for the United States and indicated that there's a petting zoo in Huntsville, Alabama, that needs money to be protected. That's a critical infrastructure. This is Homeland Security and a report by that department. That there's a kangaroo conservation center in Georgia that needs to be funded, that needs money in order to be protected as an area of Homeland Security. $30,000 has been granted now to Lake County, Tennessee for a defibrillator at their high school basketball games. Now, where does that come into Homeland Security and fighting terrorism?
Well, obviously, I don't know, and you know, I've made a comment before that I don't know where our government gets information to make decisions.
$1.5 million has been granted now, Mayor, to North Pole, Alaska, population 1,600, which is deemed to be an area that terrorists are going to be attacking any day. $1.5 million for North Pole, Alaska, for communications equipment and rescue equipment.
Ron, I'm speechless. Again, it's a difficult issue, and I don't want to make fun of our government because obviously they're trying to do something with it, but I'm more concerned with the process as to how we make those decisions. And if you don't include us in that decision-making process, then more likely than not, the answer is going to be wrong.
Mr. Former Chairman and Mr. Mayor, the Rio Grande Valley Partnership, which is the main organization which puts the whole valley together, 4 counties and many municipalities into one entity. And its CEO and president, Mr. Bill Summers, has invited Secretary Chertoff to come down to the border region and do an inspection, basically carrying on to what he and Senator Hutchison started when they first came several months ago. Would you work cooperatively with the partnership in bringing the Secretary and furthering this invitation when you meet with him?
Absolutely. I think it would be wonderful if they could bring the Secretary over here so we can continue the dialogue and hopefully find the solution to the needs of both our government and our border communities.
Now, as you saw during the interview with Senator Cornyn, he too almost humorously understands that within the Beltway, within Washington, D.C., the bureaucracy itself does not really understand and comprehend the unique vulnerabilities of the water supply, the air supply, and the uniqueness of the economy as it relates to the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, where in many cases up to 40% of the populations, maybe in your community, I know that's the one in Brownsville, has family on the other side. It would be like a Berlin Wall for this fence to be built. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you for your
Homeland
interest. Thank you for joining us. Till next time, adios.